So you got a little bit about what Food for Thought is when you came to Localicious, but we're really, especially in the age of COVID, looking at what systems are working, what systems are not working, and how does Food for Thought and our mission to create a local solution to hunger, what does that look like in the age of COVID? And the good news for us is that we have not had to refocus. So our work has not changed, but it has had a light shown on it, in that the need for local food, the need for local Wyoming beef, the holes in the hunger safety net, not just for people who suffer for hunger, but for even people that just go to the grocery store on a regular basis, became vastly evident, right, as the first few days of the quarantine and subsequent weeks came through. So what we're doing at Food for Thought is we continue to do our weekend food bags, albeit they're modified the way that we distribute them, but we're still getting them out to our kids. And then sourcing food has also been a little tricky, because even though Wyoming Food Bank of the Rockies' building is full of food, it's basically dedicated to their mobile pantries that they're doing, which is a little bit tricky because not for us so much, but for other organizations who rely on them, they're running into not being able to access what they were able to access before. The same is true for us with our grocery store partners. We're not able to order what we were able to order before for our food bags, so we're getting more creative. But with every problem, there's an opportunity for innovation. So we're just looking at, what does that look like? Our dream is for our food bags to be full of local food. And it's been that dream for the past 7 years. And so that's kind of our driving force behind everything that we do. We're expanding our urban farms this summer and adding another location. So right now we have 200 garden beds, 3 high tunnel greenhouses, a geodesic dome, a 4-season greenhouse, and then we're adding more. And then we're hopefully going to push our seed library soon. So currently there's 3 full-time staff, and we are really kind of doing everything that usually volunteers would come in and do, because we're trying to keep everybody safe. And so, we're really looking at what can we do to empower our community to have better access to local food. But in doing so, we're realizing that you can't just tell people they have to eat local, they have to have the access to local food, right? So I'm working with the First Lady on a Farm to Plate task force, and what's becoming quickly evident is there's a lot of producers in the state who are able and willing to donate a cow or a pig. That's not the full gamut, right? You have to process it, and there aren't a lot of processors with availability right now.
Yeah.
So that's a huge hole. Huge. Just like elephant in the room, huge. Everyone's been doing what they can with what they have, right? Sending it out of state. And then you have these huge producers with these huge COVID outbreaks. And so, it's kind of like a snowball effect. And so truly, I think possibly the biggest help you can be right now and going forward would be to help advocate for changes in the food laws. Yeah.
Well, this is great, Jamie, because last night Tyler Lindholm and I were on the phone. Tyler, as you know, sponsored legislation that passed with regard to animal shares that would allow for state-inspected processing of livestock that could be subject to animal shares. So people can buy local, they can buy a specific animal, and they can know that meat is coming from a Wyoming produced animal, and that source of protein is undeniably Wyoming. Right. And what a blessing that passed. But there have to be improvements in the ways we implement it. And Jamie, you're spot on. And we are all over it.
Awesome. Good. Well, I appreciate that. I think that that's the other piece. It's interesting because I'm a city girl. I live in Casper. I don't have I love to go to friends' ranches, but I'm not a country girl. And so it's interesting living in Casper and looking at this from an urban piece. You mentioned Tyler's legislation,
Yeah,
which is awesome. But at the same time, I think with that for us in the city, it comes with a large amount of education we need to give to people to
yeah,
understand the value and what they're buying, right? Because they're so used to going to the grocery store and buying meat in plastic.
you're right.
And they, in fact, we were joking about this earlier that someone asked, what did they asked if there were chickens, where did the chickens meat come from? Like they didn't understand the correlation between the live animal and the animal in the grocery store.
Wow.
And why kill animals when there's meat?
Oh, my coworker just said, why kill animals when there's meat in the store?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
As a person who majored in animal science at the University of Wyoming, that's very hard for me to grasp mentally. But thank you for reminding me how separated people are from the land.
Yes. Yeah. And that was the driving force behind why we started our community gardens was we wanted people to know what a tomato looked like on a tomato plant.
As Jamie said, you know, a lot of great, I mean, Food for Thought is one of a number of organizations doing just amazing work across the state, all in their own communities, and just doing a magnificent job, and have been doing it before the spotlight was on them. And now I think even more so, just the need to highlight what they're doing and the fact that there are people doing great things. You know, as Jamie mentioned specifically, it's a bigger issue, and you're on the ag side, so you know this as well as I. I love what Tyler Lindholm is trying to do in this state. I think all of those folks trying to increase economic diversity in what's already here, you know, through expanding ag processes and kind of getting the government out of the way, you know, while still protecting consumers. I think those efforts are incredible on the commercial side of things. What Food for Thought I think is doing is the same, in that same vein, only trying to do it to help at-risk populations, but with the Good Food Hub that, you know, that they purchased in Casper, trying to do that on both a nonprofit as well as on the for-profit side of things, and just increasing the access to markets for producers and for consumers, local produce. I mean, you know, we are trying to support Casper restaurants as much as we can. And so it's been a nice break for not having to cook, because my gosh, I'm eating kids 3 meals a day, and I'm not used to doing that, all those working moms. But that being said, we've already had comments about how, you know, just 6 weeks into this, the food distribution system is just being incredibly strained, and the access to proteins into, you know, and as well as produce is already being strained. And you're seeing that in the grocery stores, you're seeing that in access to restaurants. And so just highlighting the need that, you know, I don't want to say 6 weeks is not a long time, but 6 weeks is really not that big a long, you know, that long a time to see just how incredibly dependent we are on the ability for things to, you know, to come in from outside, and how we can be replacing the need for things to come outside and, you know, be producing those in Wyoming, and how many problems that actually solves. Just how many, you know, how many great people are trying to work on those efforts from all different angles. And I think just trying to highlight that for you, so that you know what Jamie and the First Lady are trying to do on the food to excuse me, I'm going to mess this up, the farm to plate efforts, as well as what, you know, Ogden Driscoll and Tyler Lindholm are trying to do with access. And I know that the First Lady has been very vocal too about, you know, getting more support for local markets, especially given what's happening with the ag producers.
Yes, indeed.
On the protein side. I mean, you know that as well more than I do, because you're in that business. But I think just continuing to support and help highlight those efforts. You know, I think it's important to be drawing attention that things are trying to be done. The state is trying to do that. Local folks are trying to do that. Individuals are trying to do that, because I think those connections are the thing that is going to be critical to be making those changes. So that's kind of my, you know, my plug for how to be promoting all of the stuff that's going on. You know, and I think it's helpful for you too to kind of know what the communities are doing as you are running a campaign, and to highlight the great things that are really happening and that people are trying to do. I think it's, you know, it's a good, refreshing way to look at things when it's really hard to say, oh my gosh, the hit from this to the state is going to be tremendous, and it will. It's the, you know, what are the doers and the helpers doing to try to offset that. So that was why I thought it would be really helpful to connect the two of you.